On this edition of the program, my recap of Kamala Harris's speech at the DNC, and we bring on Evan Scrimshaw to talk about RFK dropping out and what it means for the future. It's all coming up. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics podcast for Friday, August 23rd. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you, and I have just gotten off the stream watching the DNC night 4. A lot of filler. I wasn't totally, this was very much, I think, their press release night. Everything else, nights 1 through 3 were for the nerds and for everybody in the party that they got to get stage time for. This was every issue that they felt like they had a win on, they were going to make a little bit of a case for. You had a lot of the actresses up there, Kerry Washington, Eva Longoria. They got a little bit more time than I would think, actual politicians who were going to push for various issues would be. But the two big stories were Kamala Harris' speech and then the fact that Beyonce didn't show up. We were informed by TMZ that Beyonce was going to show up. Turns out she was never going to show up. I got a very weird rumor that Joe Biden was going to be there for the balloon drop. Also not true. So me and TMZ sitting in a tree. Lying for you. But let's get into Kamala's speech. It's hard to grade it, much in the same way that I found Trump's speech hard to grade, just because there's so much kind of going on outside of a moment where the world's eyes are going to be on you that you really don't know what master to serve. And in Trump's case, he had a remarkable story to tell. He was a president who survived an assassination, and for the first 30 minutes of that speech, I think it was among the most human that he'd ever sounded. And then he went on for an hour, right? So it's like, okay, well then do you take the first 30 minutes, which is reasonably the only stuff that any viewer's going to watch, and say, okay, well that was really great, and then the rest of it was terrible. Like, if somebody's like, okay, I'm bored, and clicks it off, are they going to forget that first 30 minutes? So it's like, that's hard to say, because an hour and a half speech is really boring, but is the first 30 minutes something that people are going to remember? The Kamala speech is kind of different, because there's one master you have to serve, which is we need to reintroduce Kamala, because the Kamala that people knew before they didn't like. So we got to reintroduce her. And so I don't shame anybody for going very biography heavy. I don't know if I would have locked up the first third of the speech for stories about her mom. I don't know if any of the first chunk of that speech was particularly either like well written or well delivered. It's certainly, everybody loves their mom. Most people love their mom. She obviously does. That comes through, so that's good. But, it felt distant. Where she really shined, and this ultimately, I think, is going to be the beginning of where she wants to go, is that, like, Kamala Harris is kind of woke John McCain. She really came alive on the foreign policy stuff. And, we'll see what happens with the Gaza protesters, but she was full-throated in her defense of Israel. And then when talking about Gaza and the Palestinian people, stop short of saying that they will have a state, which is like south of America's perspective on that. That's like America's perspective is there will be a two-state solution. And you can say, hey, like maybe now's the time, maybe now's not the time. We have to sit down. Everybody has to be squared away. But America's idealistic perspective, at least in terms of foreign policy, is there will be two states. And Kamala stopped short at Palestinians will have a right to self-determination, which, I would read charitably, if you have to say, like, what is the best version of that? What's the worst version of that? The best version of that is that they would vote for their own state, but it doesn't guarantee it from Israel's purview. The worst version of it is that Palestinians should be allowed to have elections, which even then is kind of another anti-Hamas thing. Obviously, a lot of Trump hits. I mean, there's part of me that really wants to fast forward to the end of this election to see where we end up so I can either dunk on the Project 2025 strategy or concede on the Project 2025 strategy, because we are living in a world where, like, these two candidates are just in different universes. Like, there's nothing that the Trump campaign can do that will change the way that the Kamala Harris campaign talks about it, and vice versa. Like, nothing. Kamala Harris coming out and giving a very full-throated defense of Israel will not stop Donald Trump from saying, I was the best Israel president ever, and the Biden campaign is coddling Hamas. Like, these are just two totally cleaved different universes, which is, like, in a lot of ways less fun because it takes away the sort of chess element of, like, okay, well, you're going to come at me for that? Well, I'll mitigate it with this. And ultimately, that will be meted out by the voters. But it just, you don't see it in the back and forth. I didn't love it. I didn't love it as a speech. I thought she got fired up during foreign policy, but also the foreign policy side was like neocon, which I did not read from her. So it's like she's introduced progressive policies on economics, and then she comes out during the State of the Union, and it's like she's one step short of John McCain's bomb Iran, right? I don't know, but maybe that works. Maybe she's playing 5D chess, and that's what America really, really wants. John McCain's foreign policy with Bernie Sanders' economic policy. We'll see. A lot of conversation about Kamala Harris, a lot of conversation about RFK dropping out, and a lot of conversation with Evan Scrimshaw right after this. This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. For $3, you get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. We only have one updated story here because we are up late, and that is that according to the State of Arizona Office of Secretary of State, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is officially off the ballot. This lending credence to RFK Jr.'s speech today, as you were listening to this on Friday, will take himself out of the race. The big question is whether or not he endorses Donald Trump. Rumors abound. The same rumor mill that told you that Beyonce was going to be performing at the DNC say that he will endorse Donald Trump, although some say that there is a fight with his wife, Cheryl Hines, who does live amongst polite society in Los Angeles and would not like Trump endorser on her resume. So we will see how that plays out a little bit later. I want to take a moment right now to speak to you guys, especially those who support us at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. You guys are my lifeblood. You guys are the reason that I have a career. You're the reason why my wife and I are expecting a child, which brings me to the next few weeks. We are going to go to a 1 episode a week schedule for the next few weeks, and I may or may not be on the main feed episodes. We are going to be putting together some guest hosts, mostly because I've never had a child before. I want to make sure that I have the utmost attention, not only for my newborn daughter, but also my wife. This will go back to the normal schedule as soon as we absolutely can. And my goal is to continue to do all of the Patreon episodes the way that they had been done. So still do a Sunday episode, still do a Thursday episode. But, you know, I want to take a little bit off my plate to be able to focus on the family, my wife and my daughter. The baby is likely coming sooner rather than later. And so I just wanted to update you guys on that. Thank you for your patience. And everything will be back to normal just as soon as we can. And hopefully I'll have a little teammate here that I can put on mic so she can gurgle for you. Because if there's one thing she's going to have to learn very, very early is that you always got to give a little to the people that give a little to you. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go. $3 get you 2 bonus episodes each and every week, even throughout this period. Thank you all very, very much. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. So normally I would be in the DNC and I would not be doing interviews. I would just be bringing you guys the on-the-ground stuff. But since I am back home and we have news that I want to break into numbers-wise, we got to bring one of our favorite guests back on, Mr. Evan Scrimshaw, The Lines, and everywhere else. How you doing, buddy?
Thanks for having me. Was a little temporarily sad that you replaced me as the numbers nerd on the show, but was very happy that you had my buddy Ryan on.
There's not one spot. I love everybody. You should not be threatened by Ryan Jabikowski. He was fine. He was great. But you have a dominion over this podcast. Everybody loves you. So don't worry. You're not. Nothing's happening. Just because we have a new baby doesn't mean that we don't love you. This is all stuff that I need to get used to saying. All right, so before we go any further, there was one take that you took me to task on Twitter. Please air your grievance.
Hillary Clinton's speech on Monday night was one of the worst political speeches that I have ever seen in my life in any country, and I watch a hell of a lot of speeches in a hell of a lot of countries. That speech was terrible. It was a speech all about her at a convention that's supposed to be about Kamala Harris. It was a speech that fundamentally treated herself as a sort of like beacon of hope at a time when Hillary Clinton is directly responsible for like quite a lot of the worst things of the last 10 years. Hillary Clinton is a catastrophic failure. She was a mediocre Secretary of State. She was a terrible presidential candidate. And her failures to ever reflect on her place in this party and her responsibility for 2016 is directly responsible for so much of the problem and the pain that Donald Trump has caused America. And she went on stage and did a self-congratulatory, oh my God, I'm so amazing, and oh my Lord. Like, get the hell out of here, Hillary. Go away. No one wants you here.
Apparently,
bye-bye.
And apparently
night, to quote Steve Kerr.
References... apparently coded in references to a musical she has bankrolled. So, which the musical then put out the clips put together that are from the musical that nobody has heard of that Hillary Clinton repeated. So it was sponsored content on top of all that. I said it was the best speech that I've ever heard her give, and I will tell you, as somebody who was in the room, it was extraordinarily well received in the room. And the reason why is because, as has played out the next 2 nights that I was not in the room for, full disclosure, this is still a disparate party that is primarily united by one thing, and that is animus toward Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton coming out as a Donald Trump victim / I think Hillary Clinton finding her own voice as just being kind of low down and mean and self-centered at least reads authentic in a way that Hillary Clinton to me has never read. Whenever she's tried to be the kind of grande dame or the classy, the moment in history kind of figure, it's never been a suit that's fit. What's fit is that she's kind of petty and mean. And she was petty and mean, and considering that crowd was really into bashing on that target, I thought it played as well as I have ever seen her play. That was my only point. I don't disagree with you.
So I agree that the speech was received well in the room. I think the other reason the speech was received well in the room is that Democrats don't hold Democrats to a high enough standard. Like we treat failed politicians like they aren't failures. And, the fact that John Kerry, ended up getting, the state after being a failed presidential nominee. I mean, I guess 2004, it depends on how weak you think Bush was, but we just lionize failed politicians way too much in the Democratic Party. And the one bit of Republican ruthlessness is Rick Santorum didn't get to, doesn't still speak at RNCs, right? Hell, even Mitt Romney doesn't speak.
Clear the decks.
Didn't speak in 2016, even at a convention that was far less sort of down the line, that was less far down the line Trumpian. I mean, you were in the room for the Ted Cruz 2016 speech, right?
Yes. Well, no, I was covering it, but I was exiled to Media Row to narrate it for BitTorrent at the time. But I certainly was enough in the room to understand why that reaction was that reaction.
Right. And that speech was just so bad, and it was nauseating. It was nauseating.
This kind of speaks to the modern Democratic Party, and now more than ever, it's all right, look, I don't know. Kamala's going to win. We're going to talk a lot about the RFK dropout in a second. Kamala might win, and maybe this is all forgotten. But part of the lesson of Hillary Clinton, to me, was maybe don't clear out all opposition during the primary. Maybe the primary is there for a good reason, so you can identify negativities in your campaign and in your candidate, and if you can't patch them up, then get them to the side, because it's going to be better to have a campaign and a candidate that's resilient than one that is very fragile. We are seeing this campaign, this Kamala campaign, being launched with literally no testing at all whatsoever. Just ship it. And right now it looks good, but we don't know. And that's part of the issue, I think, with the Democratic Party now, is that, and to the lionization of failed politicians, is that everything is an Etch-a-Sketch. It's just shake it up. And no, Hillary Clinton didn't fail because she didn't go to Michigan. She failed because of misogyny that will be banished to the shadow realm if you vote for Kamala Harris. You can redeem Hillary Clinton by voting for Kamala Harris. If you have any angst as a woman that Hillary didn't win, guess what? You can get it back. This is endgame. Sure, you lost Infinity War, but now you're going to beat Thanos.
So that's true. I will say at least Kamala has gotten to run in a Democratic primary before. I'd be much more concerned about the having not trial run a politician's first instincts politically if this were Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom or somebody who has never really faced national scrutiny. Now, that 2020 primary, I'm not saying was evidence of good instincts.
I think that you would say it's the exact opposite, and I am still not convinced that we are not going to see an exact repeat of it, because for everybody who remembers the end of the Kamala Harris campaign, they don't seem to remember the beginning, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. Gigantic amounts of money, gigantic amount of praise, and a live rhetorical ability for which you say, wow, there's got to be something here.
Right. Which is, I think, sort of the thing that both sort of concerns me is that 2020 campaign was a disaster. And they had a moment, they had a chance, they totally couldn't capitalize on it. It was not a good campaign. As somebody who supported her in 2020, I was not a fan of that campaign. I do think that campaign, at least, there are signs so far, and it's been a month. We're literally recording this, a month and a day after Joe Biden dropped.
It feels like 10 years. It feels like 10 years because this is the campaign on edibles where every minute feels like a week.
Right, exactly. Like I was thinking about like how long it's been since I was last on, and I'm like, oh, it feels like it's been like so long, and it's been like I think 5 weeks or something.
Yeah,
I wasn't even and like,
and so much has happened.
right,
And so much has happened.
it feels like I haven't been on in 3 months, and it's been like 5 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
But the one thing about her campaign was that it was always incredibly leaky, and now that seems to at least have tightened up.
Well, it was leaky at the end. I mean, like leaks happen when you're losing,
Sure.
right? Because everybody's trying to protect their next job, and they want everybody to know. They want to shape the narrative that this absolute disaster is not my fault. It is the fault of insert enemy.
The thing that gives me confidence is that it does not seem like Trump's people have any idea how to campaign against her.
I mean,
and I want to be very clear.
well, here,
Trump's people and Republicans are not the same thing, because some Republicans absolutely know what they should be doing. Dave McCormick had a 90-second spot on Twitter within 2 days, and I'm pretty sure he's basically just been running 30-second equivalents of that on TV in Pennsylvania.
On TV, which is just
Republicans know the message.
His playbook is everything she said in 2019.
Right.
Just play everything and then say if she's saying something different, she's a liar. If she's not a liar, she's to the left of Bernie Sanders.
Right, exactly. Like, Republicans know how to attack her. Trump doesn't. Trump is getting pulled into all these, not to use the word, but weird coals to sack of whether she's really black, and going at Josh Shapiro in one of the most just truly unhinged Jewish anti-Semitic rants in a while. Like, they can't stay on message against her because they were so desperate to run against Biden.
Yeah, well, he, and that's when you've united like Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Sununu, who are going on television and saying, for the love of God, just talk about everything she said in 2019. Everything she said in 2019 is absolute gold. You know, just every time she's going to ban fracking on Slow Jam the News every night, 5 times a night when everybody is watching Big Bang Theory. I agree with you. Now, let's get into why I wanted to bring you on. And that is the news that is apparently going to go down today as this comes out, Friday, that RFK Jr. is not only going to drop out, but according to ABC, he is going to endorse Donald Trump in Arizona. Obviously, this campaign, the RFK Jr. campaign, is probably out of money. We're going to take a wild guess, considering the vice presidential nominee and the biggest donor, Nicole Shanahan, was openly musing about endorsing Trump. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that she didn't want to cut another check. But also there is some deep animus between RFK and the Democratic Party, which is leading him to take the stance to nominate Trump. Your general top line thoughts, because what I want to do is go state by state here.
I think my general thoughts is that well, I mean, he refunded about $1 million to his vice presidential nominee, which is a very odd thing to do if this campaign if something isn't like very structurally wrong. I think people are gonna massively overstate how important this is, because the main thing about people who vote for third parties, both here and in more multi-party democracies, is that plenty of them just don't want to vote for a major party. Like, voters who vote for like the Lib Dems in England or like the NDP or the Greens in Canada, it's not like that they're too stupid to understand like how voting systems work and first past the post. It's that they're making an active decision to do a thing. About the polling that we have is that it is kind of coalescing around 45% of RFK's vote will go to Trump, 25% will go to Harris, the rest will not vote for Cornel West or Jill Stein or whatever the other available third party is. That seems reasonable, and like if he's polling at 4-ish%, 5, I don't actually know what he's polling nationally right now.
I can tell you right now, nationally he is at 4.5.
Cool. So call that a point. If you're gaining 20%, call it a 5. Call it a vote share of 5. That's that's worth a point on margin, but that assumes that those voters stay the same, and that also assumes that there's no sort of like broader ideological penalty to Trump for associating with somebody who is a whack job.
All right. Well, here's why I want to go state by state, because he's 4.5 in terms of the general election. And if you look at where the vote share has gone since the Harris announcement, it has been a steady decline from, I think his high, I'm looking here at Real Clear Politics, was 10.3. This is in July 6th, July 21st, Biden withdraws. He was declining from there, but by the time that we get to where we are right now, it's 4.5, right? So the way I'm reading that is the whatever Democratic vote share that he had has left him. Like they are comfortable with Harris. They believe Harris can win. They are not disgusted by the fact that Joe Biden is running at his age. This is that has gone. Now maybe there is more to squeeze out of that with him going. So it is maybe Harris gains a little bit, but the question I really have is, if it is 40% of that remaining vote share, does that matter specifically in these swing states? And let's start with where they're doing the announcement. This is Arizona. Arizona, he is doing better than his national average. He is at 5.8% there. And right now, the Real Clear Politics average is a 0.6% lead for Kamala Harris. So by that math, this would be more statistically significant if we believe these numbers.
The counterpoint to that is that there's been a bunch of Hispanic-only polling, and I think some split ticket polling showed this as well, that RFK has always polled significantly better with Hispanics than any other group. That he has sort of been a default, catch-all for general lack of enthusiasm with Hispanic voters. And while Kamala's Hispanic numbers are getting better, depending on the poll you look at, she, at best is sort of matching Biden's 2020 results.
If not a shade lower.
Not a shade lower.
The best numbers I saw are less, but in the ballpark of Biden.
Yeah, I think it was 19, and I think in the states that they were polling it was like a 22-point margin last time. So it's close enough that it's sort of there, but like they are getting better, that theoretically they could get above Biden and with 3 more weeks of ads or whatever. But if that vote that he's holding is Hispanic, then and therefore he was kind of a catch-all. I'm not positive that he's going to be able to bring a meaningful number of voters along with him. I think
just because the Hispanic demographic might not follow, they are not engaged enough. They liked the idea of a Kennedy, but they are not there to follow wherever Kennedy goes.
And like part of the reason that they were voting for Kennedy in the first place is a deep disdain for Donald Trump and a deep disdain too for Joe Biden. But now Democrats have done the job of getting rid of their problem. So I just don't think this is the thing, is that I do I think there was a bunch of discourse when Kennedy got on the Texas ballot that this might be because Democrats don't want him on the ballot in Texas. They were trying to sue to get him off, and I kind of never agreed with that, because it's if he's just a repository for some amount of Hispanic sort of disaffection, you probably do want him off, because it will just enable you to get those Hispanic votes back who in a head-to-head will prefer Harris over Trump, but might just not be super enthused about Harris.
I mean, I tend to think that if this matters, and we don't know, right? But if it matters in Arizona and Nevada. Those are 2 states that right now, specifically Arizona, Harris has shown more resiliency in. They were all but left for dead by the time that Biden got out. But you're right. RFK Jr. is somebody that speaks very specifically to the Hispanic coalition. His dad spoke very well to Hispanic voters. And for whatever that matters, although that was a jillion years ago, it seemed to show up in the polling up till now. And if we're talking about states that, again, were super close in 2020, were super close in 2016, you know, these are the kinds of things that in a post-mortem campaigns would bitch to the ends of the earth about, right? The third party candidate that got just that much that ruined everything for them.
For sure. I'm gonna potentially disagree, though, that I don't think it will be most dispositive or most important in Arizona. If I were the Trump campaign and I were doing this, I'd absolutely be holding this rally in Michigan. Because
Well, let's go ahead and swing on over to Michigan.
because
then,
RFK
because right
is polling 5.9 per Real Clear Politics. I think I've just been jumping around. I'm pretty sure it's the highest vote share that he's getting in any of the big 7 swing states. But more importantly, that is a place where RFK's voters, I think, are going to be more malleable, because I think they're actively RFK supporters for a specific reason of not liking a Democrat, as opposed to just sort of a Hispanic catch-all, like, I don't really, whatever. And I think, therefore, his voters might be more willing to listen to him in Michigan, because his coalition is going to be a lot of people who dislike Kamala Harris for various reasons of Middle East policy, the treatment of Palestine, et cetera, et cetera. And I think those voters are going to be more... I think those voters might be easier to shift than there, because especially if...
Who are you modeling as the RFK voter? In your mind, who is that? What do they do?
So generally speaking, low social trust, pays less attention to politics, generally sort of like anti-system, some of the same sort of appeal to sort of like disaffected white working class voters of sort of 2016 era MAGA, sort of, during the swamp, and then some just sort of like low information voters who think, oh, Kennedy, the Kennedy name means something to me, whatever. But I think in Michigan there's that sort of like, kind of, all the politicians are corrupt, they're all bastards. But I think there is also some of that, Genocide Joe, Killer Kamala, sort of tendency that...
I mean, I think those voters, though, those voters, to me, it's all about Cornel West and Jill Stein. That's where the repository of that, especially in Michigan, is going to go. And we don't know, as I am recording this right now, it's about 2:00 on the East Coast. So we have no idea how this uncommitted stuff is going to play out at the convention. We don't know where things are going to go past there in terms of the Harris campaign having a problem on their left flank when it comes to Gaza in the same kind of way that Joe Biden did. But to me, the angst there is to those candidates. It's to Cornel West and to Jill Stein. And I can't remember what the ballot access is for Cornel West in Michigan. Kennedy, though, I totally agree. And let me run this by you, because it's a weird theory, but I'm totally into it. I believe that exactly the person you talked about is the Gathering of the Juggalos demo. I'm not saying that they're all Juggalos, but like that, to me, the Gathering of the Juggalos is where the horseshoe theory connects of our modern political process. And it is low social trust, a belief that the system is rigged against them, but they want to try. They want something. They want something to give them a spark. If I were RFK Jr. and I were seriously still campaigning, I would have tried to get booked at the Gathering.
For sure. Because that's the kind of thing where, I mean, RFK's campaign has not been particularly good, and like he's totally just wasted. Again, he should have just done a deal with the libertarians and gotten ballot access everywhere, and then focused on campaigning instead of
they would not
having to spend all his money on ballot access.
The libertarians had already been spoken for by a larger party, and that is the Trump campaign. Which is the other side of this, is that the Trump campaign has played a long game now of essentially neutralizing their biggest third-party threats. They have totally infiltrated the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is not putting national resources into Chase Oliver in swing states. And it's entirely because, and the head of their party is not shy about it on Twitter, is because they want Donald Trump to win to free Ross Ulbricht. That's what they want to bring back. Now, it is a fundamental reshaping of the Libertarian Party. I have said that it was the biggest act of political cuckoldry I'd ever seen to have a rival candidate speak at their convention. But still, that is what it is. And now with RFK gone, there doesn't seem to be anyone to Trump's either right or middle that would not want to vote for a Democrat that is even in this race anymore once RFK gets out and endorses.
Yeah, and I think from Trump's perspective, there's a very easy argument to make that this is a good thing for him, right? Like, now that Biden's out of the race, the three-way or the five-way polling is worse for Trump in general than the head-to-head. And so you should therefore try and create a head-to-head race. The problem is that if Trump's biggest problem are suburban moderates, and specifically suburban women, is it a particularly great idea to have America's most famous anti-vaxxer and a guy with a brain worm who dragged a bear into Central Park, who has a litany of scandals that, I guess it's Donald Trump, so he doesn't really care about scandals. But, is it a great idea to make, do vaccines cause autism as a debate talking point that you might have to defend?
If it gives you 2 points in the states that we're talking about, yes. I mean, I think that's the idea, right?
Yeah, but if you gain a point on margin and then you lose a point to Kamala Harris in the suburbs, spoiler alert, you've just lost that one.
I don't think that anybody that was seriously considering voting for Trump that is persuadable is going to be unpersuaded by literally anything other than Donald Trump. Like, that's it. Anything that happens under, it's the reason why I don't buy the JD Vance's Sarah Palin thing, because John McCain needed Sarah Palin. He needed to pull more of the right wing of his coalition in because they didn't trust him. JD Vance is, who cares? Nobody is making their decision to vote or not vote based on JD Vance. Now, you can make the argument that JD Vance has energized the Democrats, and that probably has its own net effect. I would buy that, but I don't think that that anything that is below the supernova that is Donald Trump really much matters. And if you can gain any kind of electoral advantage in these states that are close and getting closer, it's worth it if you can now position yourself. And I think my guess is that the RFK rationale for doing this is, hey, I don't agree with either of these parties. I would run against both of them, but only one of them has spent tens of millions of dollars and turned my entire family against me. So if you care about any kind of democracy going forward, you need to vote for Donald Trump. I think that's going to be his pitch.
Yeah, also, presumably he's getting some form of some. I mean, the thing is, it's a promise from Donald Trump, so I don't know what a promise from Donald Trump is worth. Look at literally everything he's ever done in his life. I do have to upbraid you though, saying that nothing below the presidential. If he would have picked Nikki Haley, he'd probably still have a lead. Maybe not a national lead, but he'd still have a lead in the swing states against Harris for sure. Because she would reassure a lot of your South Lake, a lot of your Forsyth, a lot of your Scrimshaw, Global Realignment, Bingo, suburbanites who are the reason Democrats netted a Senate seat last in 2022. She would absolutely reassure those voters. I'm not saying Vance is some terrible pick. I don't. I think VP picks is one of these things where you can make good ones. It's kind of hard to really make bad ones. But I think the thing for me is I do just think we always forget this point. Georgia was decided by 12,000 votes. Arizona by not substantially more than that. A Senate seat in 2022 was decided by 8,000 votes.
Yeah.
And the suburbs are the most important battleground in this election, because whether or not Democrats can keep running up the suburban score and can continue to get those trends extending is literally the most important thing happening in this election.
That's the ball game. Yeah.
I just don't know if I just don't know at what point Donald Trump, and I mean, clearly he has no control and whatever, so he's just never going to be able to do it. But like, at what point is Donald Trump going to realize where the battleground is?
He is the Brett Favre of American politics. It's like, yes, he's got the talent to win you the Super Bowl, but he will also not hesitate to throw a pick in the last 30 seconds for no apparent reason.
Two things on that. One, did you know I was born like 6 days before the Packers won their only Super Bowl with Brett Favre? And two, remember the terrible interception he threw against the Giants in his last game as a Packer? That game, he threw that pick on my 11th birthday.
I'm glad it stuck.
I was so sad about that. My mother literally didn't make me go to school the next day.
Oh yeah, because you're a Packers fan, right?
I'm a very excited Packers fan, but I was a very sad Packers fan that day.
Then on your 11th birthday. All right, well here, let's real quick fill out these swing states. So you mentioned Georgia. That is currently a Trump plus 1.7 lead on the Real Clear Politics average. This is on the lower end for RFK Jr. So I guess the argument of it not necessarily mattering in Georgia, or to your argument of it's only a net negative because it might turn off some of those suburban voters, is he's only at 4% there, which is below his national average of 4.5. So Georgia's already soured, even relative to the nation, on Kennedy. Although looking at the most recent polls, he is fairly remarkably static at 4.
Yeah.
It just doesn't move. It's the same 4%.
I think I was looking at the New York Times. I was looking at the New York Times Siena polls because I have a preview for the lines on Georgia and why I'm more optimistic on Biden than others. Harris. Wow, that's a Freudian slip. Yeah, that'll be out by the time people are listening to this. But I think he literally pulled 4% with white voters in Georgia, 4% with black voters in Georgia, and 4% with others, so Hispanics, Asians, etc. I think it was just consistent 4 across the board for RFK.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean...
No, yeah, I'm looking at this. New York Times, Siena, Cook, Political, Fabrizio Anzalone, Bloomberg, Morning Consult, The Hill, Emerson, Landmark Communications. Think what you will about any of their reputations. All of them say 4% of Georgians support RFK across the board.
That is ludicrous. By the way, did you see the Survey USA North Carolina poll that dropped as we're recording this?
I have not. No. What is it?
Harris +1 in the presidential race. Josh Stein up 14 in the governor's race.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, that's a big one.
Can't wait for Cook to still not move North Carolina governor off of toss-up.
I mean, what is your take? Because you are a big polarization guy. That polarization is real, and it will trump anything. And like, you know, you've seen these gigantic gaps that have opened up down ballot with Trump at his most resilient and most popular that we've seen him in his previous 2 runs. And yet everybody down ballot except Tim Sheehy is apparently caught on in Montana. Other than that, Senate-wise, everybody's running way below him. Governor-wise, it is, you know, what breaks? Are we at a new era of ticket splitting, or are these polls just things you say before you wind up voting down ballot for the same party no matter what?
So I think I think the Senate races Republicans are gonna come home, and it's gonna be a really annoying September and October of Republicans have momentum in Senate races, but it's literally just an 8-point delta between between the Trump Harris margin and the Senate Democrat margin is going to end up being like a 4-point thing. Incumbency in the Senate, I think Nate Silver had an estimate in 2018 that it was worth about 6 points. In a Prez year, maybe make that 4. So yeah, if Wisconsin's line ball, then yeah, Tammy Baldwin winning by 4 makes sense. Her winning by 9, not so much. and the thing is, like, yeah, like I don't think John Tester has much of a chance. I'm like increasingly becoming the only Bernie Moreno defender. Like, because I totally think he's going to beat Sherrod in Ohio, just because, yeah, I do believe
I
polarization is
think
going to
so
come home, and that
too.
I can't make that argument in, like, I can't make that argument in, you know, bad fit. You know, I can't have made that argument in the
And
past and
also,
then suddenly be like, ah, but Sherrod Brown is going to outrun Kamala Harris by 11 points.
I wondered about Jackie Rosen staying home from the DNC because the three Senate candidates that stayed home are Sherrod Brown, John Tester, and Jackie Rosen. And I just wonder what her internals look like and if they're significantly different than the public polling.
My guess is that the one thing about Rosen is that the public polls might be so terrible that Senate Republicans end up triaging Sam Brown, which would be the one thing that, like, that's the one caveat to all of this, is that
Yeah.
if national Republicans triage you, then the polarization stuff kind of matters a little bit less. Like, that's happened to Sherrod
And
Brown in
by that you mean
2018.
that they're saving money by just not investing in you because they believe that there are other seats that are going to
Right, exactly. And it's one of these things
yeah.
where, like, they think you can't win, therefore they don't invest in you, therefore you don't actually have a chance to win. Like, it's why Carrie, like, had, like, randomly two internals last week that showed her tied and within 2 points, because now is when money decisions are being made, and she does not want to be,
Left
yeah,
off.
exactly.
Yeah.
Presumably if Sam Brown had an
The only thing about
internal
Nevada is that
similarly,
it's
he
not
would
a
have forced it.
particularly expensive media market to put in. Like you get a lot of bang for your buck when all you got to do is buy ads in Clark County and Reno.
The interesting thing is the House Republicans are not spending anything in Vegas for any of the three House seats, and they had ambitions to win multiple House seats in 2022, and they're not spending there for the House either, which I think is interesting. Because, like, I don't think this is a controversial opinion. Like, Nevada is, like, very obviously the most likely Biden 2020 state to vote for Trump, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems it's polled like that, and John Ralston seems to cryptic tweet in that direction. So if that's the
Yeah,
case,
but even
then,
toss,
yeah,
but even
it makes
toss the
sense to
polls,
me.
because polls in Nevada, like, you can say, oh, polls in Nevada aren't great. Very working class, very Hispanic heavy. Neither of
Yep.
those two things exactly scream great Democratic trends. Like, you know, doesn't seem, and, you know, the Harry Reid machine, like, whatever remnants, yeah, it got CCM over the line, but
Barely.
one, barely, and two, like, you would assume that the further away that we are from the, you know, great, from Harry Reid's death and sort of like the heydays of
Yeah.
that machine, I feel like the machine's going to weaken a bit.
I mean, look, I think, and this is what I always encourage everybody who listens to this to do is don't listen to the rhetoric or don't get caught up in the rhetoric of the campaign. It does matter, but it's not the thing that you need to focus on. Focus on what they're doing. The first thing that wasn't in Kamala Harris's stump speech that she added was in Nevada, and it was no tax on tips. A direct rip of a Trump thing that seemed to have bound him to Nevada specifically, a big hospitality town. The Culinary Union came out with a statement in between when Trump launched that and before Biden dropped out, saying that the Culinary Union supports a candidate who says no tax on tips. And then Kamala Harris came out and said the exact same thing. So they're worried about it enough that they made it the first thing she said.
For sure. And like, I think it's just the state where, like, because one of the things I'm trying not to get too worked up over, given how, you know, eminently mediocre the polls were in 2020, is like just just sort of plug in a national environment, let the trends do what they do, and sort of like spit out a
Yeah.
sort of secondary calculation. And Nevada does not come out. Democrats do not come out well in Nevada when I do that. And so it would need to take like a significant amount of good polling for me to sort of adjust that prior. Which, like, somewhere like Wisconsin, which also hasn't had great trends. I mean, at least the polling is very good, so you can maybe believe the polling there. But Yeah, like I think if I'm a
Well, until
Democrat,
you get those weird
it's not
like
great.
D+11 polls that come out periodically.
Well, I mean, the amount of Vietnam flashbacks I had to so I've had when some of these polls have come out because it's just like, oh god, I'm just living the same. Just Twitter's having the same arguments that we had in 2020, and everybody is just making the same
Scrim.
arguments. And
This is
but the
this is
problem is,
the best part about getting
but
old.
the
The
problem
best
is
part
that
about
I
getting
can't
old is
even get
watching the
mad at
exact same thing
I
happen.
can't even get mad at conservative Twitter anymore when they're like, yeah, but if you like dig these like three crosstabs out, actually somehow Donald Trump's winning, and it's like, well, okay, but you did this last time and you were almost right, so like, what the hell do I know?
Let's actually wrap up here on the swing states with Wisconsin. That is a state that has gone for Kennedy more than the national average. He is at a solid 5% there, and that's what New York Times Siena has him at as well. And that currently in the RCP average is a Harris 1.5, and it would probably be closer if it were not for that Times Siena poll that had her up 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's a state with a lot of white working class voters who don't trust the system. Not shocking. And that's the kind of place where, if that I think is a place where Kennedy, if Kennedy is going to go act as a surrogate for Trump, which hasn't been reported,
Yeah.
and we don't know that, send him to Southwest Wisconsin, send him to right training areas, try and sort of get a group of people who think that Democrats are captured by the corporate interests or whatever, and claim that Donald Trump can drain the swamp and say a bunch of things that will get a lot of liberals on Twitter mad about, like, well, but what about the Trump tax cut and whatever.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. What do you make of the odds flipping back to Trump during the DNC? What do you think drives that?
Polymarket is a betting site that is increasingly reliant on crypto money. People who buy crypto are because Predicted's not seeing any of this movement that Polymarket's seen.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying one of these is right. I'm just saying like you can pretty clearly discern the bias of Polymarket from its user base. I mean, I don't think conventions are like super important. I mean, Democrats have
Predicted has closed. It was, Harris 56, and now it's Harris 53. So, and I don't know. I mean, look, let me give you my priors just on betting markets in general. I don't believe they are predictive whatsoever. I believe that they are a good way to distill hyper aware current reaction to news.
yeah conventional
And
wisdom.
every once in a while, it can be worthwhile when you just know the people that are paying the most attention to a breaking story. You can probably follow that really fast based on market spikes for some of these places. But other than that, I don't believe that they have any meaningful predictive qualities in general, especially now that the betting is so much heavier. The action is so much more.
I'm gonna say this and it's gonna sound really arrogant, but like there's a reason that one of the most successful columns that the Lines runs is my political betting column, and it's not because I'm a genius, because I'm
Yeah.
absolutely not. It's that political
It's 'cause people
betting
are hungry.
compared to sports betting, political betting is shooting a fish in a barrel. Like it's so much
Yeah.
softer than actual sports prediction. I mean, I think the real like benefit of this convention is going to be that Democrats have raised a lot of money, and that
Yep.
the clips of the Obamas or Oprah or whatever, like a bit of it, a few of those clips might end up in ads. Bunch of it's going to go around on social. Democrats are going to raise a lot of money, and you know, like I honestly think some of the most effective clips are going to be, some of the stuff wasn't necessarily in prime time, but Jeff Duncan, former lieutenant governor of Georgia, like you got Jeff Duncan for being a never Trumper, or not necessarily never Trump, but certainly anti-Trump now. Like that ain't some moderate. That ain't some middle of the road guy. Jeff Duncan's
he was
son of a bitch, a conservative Southern son of a bitch. And he's being like, Donald Trump is so crazy, I have to vote for a political party I actually, hate. He's honestly the best endorsement of the week.
He was rumored to be a no labels guy, and I don't really know if the Democrats laid that out in the same way to put him next to other, I don't know. I agree with you that he is a meaningfully different voice than others that were before and after him. I just don't know if even to explain I guess really, and he even said it, I'm talking to the audience at home. And really, he might as well have said, I'm talking to my neighbors in the following Georgia suburbs. Yep. This is why I have crossed this line. Yeah, I don't know. I think number one, in terms of the fundraising, we now know exactly the price tag of what the off-menu option for Democratic donors of what does it cost to replace your candidate midstream. This is now the price tag. So the next time that they're very unhappy with their candidate, they can say, okay, well, it's going to start at this amount of money for us to starve and then pump into the system because we really, really hated the guy that was running. In terms of the convention, the only thing that I'm really looking for is did Kamala Harris payday loan her convention bounce 2 weeks ago? Or is there still gas in the tank for her to grow? If there's still gas in the tank for her to grow, then I think she gets to some of the Biden margins that happened in 2020, and we're going to see where the polls are. If not, then, it's what kind of Tony Fabrizio from the Trump campaign has been saying, which is none of these fundamentals have changed. No matter how much razzle-dazzle sizzle you can put into that convention and how many times you can repeat joy and make the Democratic Party the party of the American flag and guns and hunting and football, the fundamentals of the electorate are still a 60-30 wrong track, and people are really mad about the economy and the border, and they don't believe that the Democrats can handle it. If that's the case, then I still think it's going to be really close, but we'll just see where the polls go from here.
Well, did you see Trump only raised, $47.5 million in July?
Yeah, not great.
Kamala literally raised more than that by 6 a.m. the July 22nd.
Oh, dude, yeah. The money advantage is back in a big way.
Right, and that is the one. I think the poor fundraising numbers, because I remember that Tony Fabrizio memo too, right? Which was conveniently released the moment Kamala got on stage for her first rally. I remember it and have dreams and nightmares about it. I think it's a totally plausible point. I can't sit here and be and not make the case for Trump. It's a pretty easy case to make. He lost the tipping point state by 1.1 points. He lost the 269th electoral vote by less than 2/3 of a percent. Nevada looks like it's a pretty good bet to flip, which opens some doors. It's a pretty easy pro-Trump case to make. The counterpoint is that the case for a D6 environment's pretty easy to make as well, which is Donald Trump was a pretty unpopular guy in 2020. He then did January 6th, and his Supreme Court overturned Roe, two things that are pretty deeply unpopular. And so, Hispanic voters, black voters, sort of whites without a degree, they'll sort of roughly stay stagnant. And then Kamala gets another 5 points in the suburbs. And boom, boom, boom. That's a D6 environment. Dems win the House. Dems win North Carolina. And they still lose the Senate because the Senate map is terrible.
The map is bad. Yeah, the map is really bad for them.
I'm not quite saying I believe that case I just made, but if it's a D6 on election night, I think the answer will be pretty easy to explain how we got there.
Yeah. Oh, no, I totally buy that. And look, this is the problem with running a presidential candidate that's hard capped at 48%, right? Is that, for everybody who says, well, Donald Trump's never been more popular. You're right. He's never been more popular he's more popular now than he was in 2016 than he was in 2020. And he can't get over 48%, no matter what. No matter how hard he tries, there are people that are just unmovable. There are independents that will never be moved and will never vote for that dude at all. This does rest on the definition of Kamala Harris. How much does she inherit the Biden administration? And right now, she has remained a very smooth pearl that has emerged from the ocean. Everybody can see themselves in her. She is going to get more defined between now and Election Day. The question is how much? And do you have real problems on your left flank with Gaza, which I think right now, up in the air, looked better for her before. Right now, if there's still a sit-in outside of the United Center with the entire attendant media getting to work as we speak right now, because I know exactly where they're doing the sit-in. It's right in front of not only the media tent, but also where the television anchors' trailers are. So like Chuck Todd is going to have to walk through them every time he goes into the building and every time he wants to go get his makeup freshened up. If that becomes a problem, and indeed Muslim Women for Harris shut down their Twitter account and start posting negative things, then yeah, Michigan's a problem again. And if they finally give her an interview and she's not great, if these debates are not great, then you are going to have an issue. But I would agree with your argument. Let's say everything goes swimmingly, then yeah, D+. I mean, I think that the baseline in a lot of these polls are D+2 or D+3. You could see a D+5. You could see a D+6 because the negatives on Donald Trump, I think they're pretty well defined.
Right, and that's the thing. It's whether or not this is whether Trump can make it a referendum on Biden Harris, and whether or not Harris can make this a choice election. And like
a choice, yeah.
It's funny because she is a pseudo incumbent, right? And the pseudo is the most important part of it, and it's how incumbenty she is will determine whether or not she can run effectively as a change candidate, and how much she can put. How much room she can put between her and Joe to suggest that she wasn't responsible for the parts of the admin that people don't like, while also allowing her to get credit for the parts of the record that do poll well. And the other thing, of course, that is fairly relevant here is Joe Biden did not win with particularly great black turnout. Like,
no.
This is not a prediction. This is like explicitly not a prediction. But if Kamala Harris, like Biden's baseline black turnout is not fantastic. There are some estimates that more black people voted in the 2021 Georgia runoffs than they did in the 2020 presidential election. Like that is not really a good thing. That is not an impressive baseline.
When it was Warnock, it was only Warnock on the ballot and not Biden.
Yeah, like not a great thing. So if having a black nominee, if she can, I know it's the overused like Twitter joke, but like go on Hot Ones, Kamala Harris. But like if she can go on Hot Ones, if she can go on the Breakfast Club, if she can talk to black audiences in this campaign, and I'm not saying she needs Obama 2008 level turnout and that sort of enthusiasm, but if she can just, if she makes the Georgia electorate 2 points blacker than Biden did, North Carolina, if Michigan gets Detroit gets a boost in black turnout, then some of your Gaza problems in Michigan go away. Some of, North Carolina gets much easier to win if
more in play.
If rural black turnout in the northeast of the state isn't terrible. Like, and that I think is the other variable that is important, but like we need to see if she can activate it. It's possible. I just don't know if she'll be able to.
Well, and she actually has to, do a interview. She has to do some kind of thing that isn't entirely stage managed, including the like scrums that she's doing where she answers one question that was almost assuredly pre-vetted by your team. There is a a question that's going to have to be answered, because we're officially out of the cute phase when it comes to LOL, we're not doing interviews. We're going to get this time cover without doing an interview. I think the media is sick of it. The media is going to hit her. I think that's the reason why you've seen more of an uptick in some of the anti Tim Wall stuff sticking in terms of the mainstream media, is because there is a lack of, it's like you had your honeymoon period. Now you actually have to start talking to people. And then the question is, were they just riding out the momentum, or are they terrified to let her throw the ball over the middle because they know that any moment she's going to say something that is either harmful or she's going to come off as, well, like she's come off in the past.
So I did have a thought about who her comp might be in terms of quarterback, and you just reminded me of this.
Okay.
And I'm apologizing in advance to you. Is she just Joe Flacco?
Best case, she's Joe Flacco.
I don't know. I don't know about best case, but like
best case, she's Joe Flacco. Yeah. I mean, look, workmanlike, and if she can turn it on like Flacco did the Super Bowl playoffs, then yeah, Flacco was dealing, dude.
Because that is sort of the thing, is like she doesn't have to be sustainable, right? Her numbers don't have to be incredible. They just have to win.
Yeah. If she can that playoffs that ended in the Harbaugh Super Bowl, if she can turn it on like those playoffs, then yes.
I mean, we might be at the point where, I think what she's done so far is, she did beat the Broncos. So that was the double overtime classic, right? That playoff run?
Yeah, I don't know if she's really done anything. I think she's had a good preseason. I think she needs to actually go and make the throws that I didn't think she could make. And that means getting out there and doing interviews and being able to have command. Because here's the fatal flaw with Kamala Harris, if you believe everything that has been said about her in D.C. forever, right? She's not serious. She doesn't do the reading. She thinks she can just walk into any environment and totally own it. And she gets over her skis and screws up. And that exacerbates her natural weaknesses personality-wise, which is to come off condescending and to get defensive. And that's where a lot of these clips that are going to get played a lot and have already gotten played a lot, they're all from positions of her feeling unprepared for easily preparable questions that she then got defensive and condescending about. And if that's the Kamala that shows up, then this is going to erode. It can't help but.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like,
I think,
if she
again,
can do that,
I was a supporter of hers who lived through the 2019 campaign. Her downsides as a candidate are eminently easy to see. Like, I'm not like, and I even wrote in a piece for my site. I'm actually writing for my Substack about America every week now.
Good. Welcome back. Welcome home.
I wrote my first thing. I did a whole thing about how I've liked Kamala for a long time, and I am a little bit terrified that the things that made me like Kamala as a candidate before are the things that are sort of blinding me to the potential flaws of her now. And I think like the fact that I'm like thinking about that and actively like keeping that in mind, I think is sort of like stopping me from going overboard on the opium or whatever. But
yeah,
I do like, she put Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina back on the board. I think that's a really, really impressive accomplishment. And she's also saved down ballot Democrats. Wow, second time.
That's a fact.
Second time he's coming up.
For now.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I do a draft every quarter on my YouTube channel with Ryan Jakubowski. Mm-hmm. Second time he's been mentioned today. And we did the draft. We did the Q3 draft the Monday after Trump was shot. So right in that weird zone where we thought the coup was done.
These are you guys are picking House districts that you think are going to go, or candidates that you think are going to
win. We draft every House toss up by Cook and just pick who's going to win. And like we did it the Monday after Trump was shot, and like the vibes on that podcast, like for Democrats, were just
bloodbath.
Yeah. And she has, like, if we redid that now, 15 seats would probably flip, 20 maybe. Like, it were like, she has It was absolutely the correct decision to make the switch, and I think she has absolutely materially helped the Democratic Party, and that is 1,000% true, even if she loses. And I'm a relative Harris optimist. She's still got a 40% chance of losing, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gun to your head, who wins right now? If you had to pick right now, gun to your head, I'm not going to hold you to this, obviously, because it's August, but who do you think wins?
I will say that through the highs of the Kamala thing, I have remained queasy on believing it. Just because the right track, wrong track hasn't really changed. I think a lot of the Trump downsides, I just don't know if they're not baked in, and I just have been burnt on this skittle so many times about not believing in the unique voter turnout power of Donald Trump, that I think if he's more powerful and people are still upset about the economy and they're still upset about the border, that no matter how many times Mindy Kaling has a good one-liner, that's how Democrats gaslight themselves every time, is believing that popular culture is on their side, and it drifts ever further away. And so, gun to my head, I think it would be extraordinarily close and Trump would win right now. But then again, I thought this would not be as big of a boom as we've seen, and it is a big boom. So I think I'm like 3 weeks of polling away from changing my opinion to a very tight election that Kamala wins.
Yeah, and I think
that's basically where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I think if we
I'm
really
still on
dug
the
in,
on the edge.
I think if we really dug into like state by state, like, and we made ourselves do the math, like I suspect you and I are probably a percentage point away. Like we're not in significantly different universes.
No, no.
Also, I gotta say,
the question is just, is this the convention bounce?
Yeah, and that's a totally
if we are looking at the convention bounce right now, then I'm way more for Trump,
right?
Because I do think it's going to settle back,
right? And that's the question we don't know the answer to, and we'll find out next week. Because basically all the media pollsters are presumably going to go to the field Friday morning with their stuff, and it'll come out next week. I think it's notable, like, that the Times did 2 sets of state polls and they haven't done a national. I don't think they've done a national in the Harris era, or maybe one immediately. But so they'll definitely go in the field next week. Like they'll be out with something next week, probably a couple others. I think the big oh my god, Taylor Swift is not going to win Kamala Harris's election. Can we please shut up about this?
Yes, I would love to.
Like, I just, she will endorse Kamala at some point, I'm sure. Twitter will love it, I'm sure.
It's either going to happen at the convention or in a video, or it'll be on Instagram, or she'll do some kind of benefit. She'll wear a T-shirt, and that's fine. I get it. I don't know how many persuadable voters are there.
And I seriously think that the level, that the kind of person who is like active enough to like deeply follow Taylor Swift is also probably, pays enough attention to Taylor Swift to know that she's a Democrat anyways. And so that's the kind of thing you get once. You get to use that bullet one time, and it's been used, and I kind of think we all know it at this point. 2, do you have a guess? So apparently there's a block of time at the DNC tonight that has been reserved, and no one knows who's filling it. Do you have a guess?
I do not. This will obviously come out afterward, but
because I have a theory.
You do? So all right, is it on the entertainment side or is it on the political side?
Am I crazy for thinking it might be Bush?
I mean, I think Bush might actually benefit Trump.
I'm not saying it would be a good idea, to be very clear, but that was my first thought, because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for Democrats to waste the Taylor endorsement in August, if it is worth anything.
Yeah.
But B, like, we would know it by now, because 1, people track her plane.
Well, Beyonce would be the other side of it, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Beyonce, she's the freedom,
But you
like
can't
that's
really
she's
you
the
can't
anthem.
really do a musical. You can't really do a musical guest as a surprise guest, can you? Because sound check needs to happen.
No, she could speak,
Yeah, maybe.
or do something a
Sure.
cappella.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I like the Taylor Swift and like the Brad Summer stuff was like fun for a day, but like, can we move on?
I could see Mitt.
Oh, Mitt would be fun. My
I
like
could see
my like
Mitt.
worst my like most right wing thing is that I just like really like Mitt Romney.
I mean, Mitt, and then maybe Obama comes out and they raise their hands together.
That would be great. Oh, can I
That's
do
a
can
big
I do
picture.
my can I do my Trump's campaign managers or just Steve Kerr rant?
Yes, please go. Ahead.
Like the amount of people who were willing to give Trump's campaign managers credit in the primaries.
Chris LaCivita and Susie
Yeah.
Wiles. Yeah.
I mean, this is true of like most political staff, and I can absolutely do this rant about David Axelrod too. But like, we got to stop giving political staff all of this credit when you're, running the campaign of the former president who has like a mass media
Yeah.
apparatus. Because the thing is, Steve Kerr is like famously, we have no idea how good of a coach he is, right? Because he had like three of his titles are just the most talented teams in NBA history, basically, outside of the 90s Bulls, whatever. Like, it was just unfair. Like, if he didn't win those titles, then he should have been fired. The fact that he only got three out of
also,
those 5 years is pretty bad. Like,
he was there in a way. He won in a way that Mark Jackson didn't. That's the one thing on his resume.
but Mark
that I
Jackson
always have, is that Mark Jackson had the same team.
but Mark Jackson's a lunatic.
There goes that man.
But like, I feel like Trump's campaign team is in this like very weird state where like, I mean, honestly, Republicans talk about them at this point, like, on Twitter, like Warriors fans do about Steve Kerr, and it's like, we're like, it's going to be this weird thing where if Trump wins, like, which again totally can happen, it's like, did they run a good campaign, or is it just that Kamala Harris really did say quite a lot of left-wing things in the 2019 primary? Like, I feel like we're massively over sort of analyzing them when it's like, I don't think the fundamentals of the Trump campaign really have anything to do with the state of the race. I think it really just has to do with, A, can Donald Trump stick to any amount of message discipline between now and Election Day? And B, does Kamala Harris, can she survive a debate and, media scrutiny in a way that, outside of that very first debate in 2019, she hasn't really ever done.
Here's where you can say that the Wiles Savita team are, this is pluses in their resume category. They correctly diagnosed to totally stay on the sideline for the primary, and then even from there, essentially via social media and whatever campaign events, they heat raid well-funded campaigns from Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, right? So like, it wasn't even like this was close. The best that you could do by the end of it with a fully consolidated anti-Trump field was get embarrassed in your home state. And so if that's the case, then you're like, okay. Now, again, to your Steve Kerr point, it's really cool to have Klay Thompson and Steph Curry on your team. And sometimes they just hit a ton of threes and nobody can beat you. Then you essentially beat Biden. In fact, one of the things that I'm surprised they haven't gone back to was Trump initially put in one of his statements that I'm going to be the first Republican candidate to beat 3 Democrats for president, which I think that's a thing that fits that milieu. They should, it projects confidence. They should continue to say it. They beat Joe Biden so bad that he leaves. Here are the negatives. Number one, I love that Tim Alberta piece. It made me think worse of them that they talked to him. Like, that they said anything about the campaign to Tim Alberta. Like, just no. Like, you can, the only thing I'll tell you is GFY. You want to maintain confidence. You want to maintain whatever is happening right now. The second they started talking and they started getting more media attention, I was like, this is a bad news. The second thing is that there was that weird Corey Lewandowski hiring that went around 2 weeks ago. And I was like, if this is real and Corey Lewandowski is now actually giving orders to LaCivita and Susie Wiles, I'm betting on Harris. Like, there are few screw-ups. Think whatever you will about LaCivita and Susie Wiles. They have a pedigree of running a professional operation in a way that Corey Lewandowski does not. The best thing that you can say about Corey Lewandowski is his body count. And that's pretty much it.
I mean, it really does seem like they hired him for some like amorphous role, and like they kind of hired him to hire him as like a sort of Trump whisperer, but like
if it was just
things.
a Trump blankie, so somebody that can just get calls from Trump all hours of the night, that's great. That's a great role for him. It was all these things that were like, oh, he's above Wiles and LaCivita, that I'm like, okay, that's terrifying. If that actually is the case, because I don't think that really anything had fundamentally changed in this race except for Democratic, binding together.
For sure. I do think it's going to be really close.
Yeah.
And I think I Democrats just need to stop talking about the Senate. Like like the chances.
But they have a chance in Florida and Texas. Colin Allred's within 2 points.
Okay, I will actually defend the Colin Allred campaign. I don't think he's going to win. That's not the defense I'm gonna mount to him here. As much
let me just tell you in terms of sign count, my neighborhood in Austin, Texas is where if I don't see every house with a Colin Allred sign, I will know that he's going to get blown out by 15 because it's a very liberal area of the state. It's a liberal enclave. I have not seen yet a one.
So
I see more Beto stuff still in my neighborhood than I see Allred stuff.
The one defense of Allred I will mount is, as much as it would be nice for resist libs to have Colin Allred be giving a new speech every day, calling Ted Cancun Cruz every day, the smart way to actually flip a Texas Senate race is to slow play it and not let it become a national race. A race of national fascination, because if it becomes a race of national fascination, the NRSC and the Senate Leadership Fund are going to dump $100 million in, and you're going to lose. And slow playing it and letting it sort of fall under the radar is his really, I'm going to say, only chance of winning it, given I don't think Kamala's going to win Texas, and therefore he's going to need to flip a certain number of Trump voters. And
Ted Cruz is unpopular relative to other Republicans. And that's something that is always the fascination, is that Ted Cruz is very famous, but he is also more vulnerable. The best thing I can say about Colin Allred is I haven't seen him make any kind of horrifying mistake in the same way that I saw Beto make horrifying mistakes in that race.
And the thing is, he's only, there was a Texas poll today, Trump plus 5.
He's 2 points behind.
Trump plus 5, Cruz plus 2. Not the worst thing in the world to just be flying under the radar when you're running against a fairly unpopular nominee.
Now, the RCP average is still 7.4, but
I think this is like the first poll that's come out in Texas since the dropout. Like, it's been a polling desert.
It is. Yeah.
Again, I don't think Colin Allred's winning. That's not the point I'm trying to make. Just no one yell at me.
But if he pushes over 40, right now in this one, he's in the 45 range. Cruz is at 47. And that is ultimately the problem with Cruz, is that Cruz can't get over 50% in a state that he's won, 4 times?
Yep. No, it's a decent. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. No, it will. Always interesting to talk to our friend Evan Scrimshaw. Where can people find your work, buddy?
Political betting, NFL, NHL, F1 at thelines.com. I literally just posted the Georgia piece that I was talking about earlier, so you can go read about the Peach State there. Scrimshawscripted.substack.com. Every Monday, U.S. writing, Canada, whatever else is interesting to me the rest of the week. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing a podcast about U.S. politics next week. I might have a guest. I might just do it solo. And Twitter, @eScrimshaw. I tweet thoughts and get mad about sports that I'm betting on.
There we go. Any quick NFL hot takes?
I mean, I had this take last year, and it turned out to be true. Jets under. Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, you don't buy the Jets.
Aaron Rodgers, when he
Jets
was
are a
the
darling.
quarterback of the Packers, was 23rd in dropback EPA. He was 22nd in success rate, and he was 18th in completion percentage over expectation. He wasn't a good quarterback before a season, before a nearly career-ending Achilles injury. He is not going to play in the preseason. He is about to face Nick Bosa in an election year and the best linebacking core in the league. Are we entirely sure he's making it out of week 1?
Good question. Good question. Aaron Rodgers Trump endorsement. What do you think? Would you buy it, or would you fade it as a prop?
I mean, he's probably going to do it. He's going to do it on McAfee, and I'm just going to lose my mind. The problem with Aaron Rodgers is that he used to be my quarterback, and the Jared Cook pass on the sidelines is still one of my favorite sporting moments ever. Oh, and he won me a Super Bowl too, by the way. So
Yeah. Against my team.
I love him. And then he's a complete mental case, and I can't love him anymore. It's really sad. Just shut up, retire, and let me forget that you're a lunatic, so I can go back to loving you.
Evan, let me tell you, as somebody who has had to root for Ben Roethlisberger most of my adult life, it can always be. It can always be.
That is a very true point.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
Buddy. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. If you'd like to email me, it is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. You can find clips of the show, Justin R. Young, on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Our YouTube, where we do live streams. We do all of our video episodes is politics. Our Twitch channel, we are also live all the time, is Justin R. Young. And you can share audio versions of this podcast at px3podcast.com. If you would like to support me on this show, as we have officially wrapped up our travel schedule for this year, very excited to have gone all the places that I've gone: Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, the other one, South Carolina. Both conventions where I saw so many people. Thank you guys. The only way that happens is that you support us. And the only way that it happens is with one-time donations to PayPal, paypal.me/payjury, to Venmo, Justin-Young-20, and to Cash App, it is PX3Cash. If you'd like to send me a check in the mail, it is P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas, 78715. I also want to put this out there into the ether. We mentioned on the show Wednesday, while we were in the C-SPAN Skybox, c-span.com/donate is a really great place to throw a few bucks. C-SPAN is the only political media in my estimation. Everyone else is show ponies. They're the only workhorse. The people that are getting you long-form, actual political content each and every day. The people there are threadbare. They are absolute studs. They work because they care about it. Trust me, I've met them. And because they are powered by cable, and less people are subscribing to cable, they are moving into a somewhat hybrid donation model. I will let you know that the people that have affected their current donation drive the most are myself and Jen Bridey from Congressional Dish, because we have put it out there to the world. And so I want to put it out there one more time, because we raised a ton of money for them during the convention. I plugged it on the live stream. I plugged it on the podcast, c-span.com/donate. You have an opportunity to say who sent you on the wall. Wouldn't hate it if you said PX3 did, if you said the Gerbs, if you said Justin Robert Jury. Go ahead and throw it in there. I like the fact that they know that we love them. And so if you're going to do it, you can go ahead and put the name of the podcast on the wall and everything that you think C-SPAN does. So go ahead and head on over there as well. c-span.com/donate. Of course, if you want to get bonus content on this show, take politics seriously. $3 tier gets you 2 bonus podcasts per week covering all the news that we missed on our free podcasting schedule. Titanic $10 tier gets your name read at the end of the show, like these fine folks: Adam, Dr. Whiskey, CP, Sean, David Potts, Nicholas, Whiskey Wolf, Sparky from Stevens, Florida, Will Porta, SingleTreeTravel.com, Fat Tony PJs from New York, Devon the CFP, Gloria, Grayzone, Peapod, Jay Van Ord, Sugar Brady, Marcus with a Q, DP4 Bongo, Sam, John, Niemeister, Edwin, and Vote Gloria Young for King of the New World Order, Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checkers, Sarah Jeannie, a cartoon by Robert Smigel, Matthew, Dr. G, Neil, his nerdiness Charles, Audrey stole Adler's spot, Daryl Hammond, Darren, Idris Oslanian, Blue Front and the Lenina, Berkeley Stephen, Chad, Zombie Doc, Matt, Chill, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey, Paul, Dustin, Brad, D-Laser, Nick, Middle-Aged Mike, Utah Jimmy Montana, The Jen, A-Lo, D. Reilly, Craig, and Andrew. If you'd like your name read in a terrible impression of the Saturday Night Live announcer, well, you might have missed your window because I just did it there. But if you want me to just say your name on the show, and I'll probably do a silly voice in the future, you can go ahead on over. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be back next week because there's a guest I desperately want to speak to because we have not had him on the show in a while. I don't even want to say his name because he hasn't been on in a minute and he's got a new book out and I'm really pumped to talk to him. I hope it happens. Other than that, I think I'm going over the waterfall, y'all, when it comes to the parenting thing. Wish me luck. Till next time, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics, some shows talk about politics, and other shows, well, man, they're talking about politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss all three.